About these Vokey wedges. Now, one reason we decided to review these is because we've all got one in the past. This season, we got a new one. I've been playing Vokeys for a while here, and to me, I don't even want to see any other wedges. You know, sometimes I see guys with some different brand wedges, and I'm just like, man, I just assume it can't be as good as the Vokeys, because Vokey has pretty much cornered the market on wedges. And so I can't remember which one of these I had first, but in my bag before this year had a 60-degree and 52-degree wedges, and you can see they both have been worn down a little bit. But I had a little gap in the bag, so that's why I picked up the 56. And this is the new S grind, and I guess you guys are going to talk a little bit about what S grind is and what the different options are for the Vokey wedges, because it's not just the number. It's not just the loft number that you see on the bottom, which when I picked this 56 up, I didn't even think about it. I was like, I need something to fill that gap. 56 is right between 52 and 60. I'll take it.
Right.
Well, most of the manufacturers recommend about a 4-degree gap in your wedges, so that depends on where your pitching wedge is, because there's a variation by manufacturer.
About 15 yards.
Because you may not have Titleist irons. You could have brand X.
Sure.
They might have a 46-degree pitching wedge. They might have a 48-degree pitching wedge. So if you go 4 degrees off of that, then you might want to go 46, 50, 54, 58, something like that.
Right.
So I'm not sure if you can see, but in my hands I've got 52, 56, and 60. And there's going to be, the loft is loft when you get right down to it, right? So it's just going to be the angle on the face, 60 degrees, 56 degrees, whatever. And most people will go and, I want a 60-degree wedge, and that's going to find one, pay for it, and be okay with it.
Swing it a couple times in the pro shop and walk out the door on the carpet.
And probably 20 years ago, that's about all you really had to do was pick that, because the grinds, they even talk about grinds. There was one style by the manufacturer, and it was it.
And when we say grinds, we're talking about the way the bounce in the angle of where the face meets the sole.
The heel,
Yes.
The heel.
Yeah, so if I can maneuver these around a little bit. So the bounce angle is going to be critical to what type of surface you're going to be hitting off. So a lot of bounce is good for sand wedge and thick grass. So if you put the club straight up in the air, you got the angle of the face here, which is just the loft, and there's a sole here that's going to go the opposite direction. So 10 degrees would be more steep than 4 degrees, we'll say. And that's designed so that the club won't dig into the sand trap or dig into the gnarly grass.
Right.
Okay. Not that you couldn't hit it off a tight lie, but the design concept is more bounce for a lousy lie. So a sand wedge would have, say, 10, 12, 14 degrees of bounce. That's so that club can go in kind of like a knife, slide under the ball without digging into the sand.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes if people bounce too much, the club will actually bounce into the ball. That's a mechanical thing. It's not the golf club doing that. All right. Then there's this one here, and I got my hand as a 60-degree, and it's got a pretty thick sole on the bottom of it, here, being this sole. So it's pretty wide. The 52 I had, my hand was narrow, which was an S grind.
That's which one is that?
This is the M grind.
M?
Okay.
So that one's more for the shallow sweeper type of swing.
Right, somebody who doesn't dig in necessarily.
Right.
So when you look at the website, they'll tell you about the typical type shot that you would play. Are you a digger or are you a picker?
Right.
What's the size of your divot? And you can buy the proper club to help you with either one of those styles.
And I think that's where they take it to another level.
They do.
Where there's you and I were going through the differences, because I had in the past used some different wedges. And a while back, I had a Vokey, and it felt too heavy for me. But then I had some lighter ones. Now I moved to the Titleist ones now, and you and I spent about 15 minutes just trying to figure out my swing and what I typically did out there, and matching the grind to it. And you had one in the pro shop, and then we ordered the other one based on my setup.
Right. It's key information to get the right tool for you, and it can make it a better player for you.
Yeah.
Better tool, better device. So. Highly recommend that you look at the loft, obviously, to fit the shot that you're trying to create, but to look at the bounce angles and the grinds to make sure they suit your game. Right. And it does make a big difference.
So we said that the M is basically for the shallow sweeper. It's a neutral setup, firm, medium type of conditions.
Yep.
And low bounce for the most part, maybe a little medium. Then you go into the F grind because they have 3 different grinds, and that's more for the shallow swing, the sweeping swing with a neutral setup, and then a little bit of a steep digger type of person. Those ones come in 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56. Right. Back to the M, sorry, I skipped over that one, but they come in a 54, 56, 58, 60, 62. So they go back and forth as far as the grind. You can't get the same club in all the grinds. You know, if you wanted a 52 or a 48, you're not getting it in the F. You're not getting it in the S. But then you have the M for that, and then the S is available in the 54, 56, 58, 60, so it goes up a little higher, and then that's more for the mid bounce, and it's also for the steep swing, a little bit of a dig.
Right.
So that's where you kind of can figure it out and tell yourself how do I typically hit it?
Right.
Am I sometimes laying sod over and going too deep with it, and what do I want to do to bounce that a little bit more?
And be honest with yourself. A guy like Phil Mickelson has probably 1 or 2 degrees of bounce on his wedges.
Sure.
But he puts his hands way ahead of it, and he tries to have like a knife angle going into it. Okay, that's not meant for everybody.
No.
The lower the bounce, the more skill it takes. So if you got 4 degrees of bounce, you're trying to hit the ball off a tight lie. It is like a razor blade going into that lie.
Yeah.
So bounce is your friend, like loft is your friend. But I'd recommend for the average person probably having 8, 10, 12 degrees of bounce. But be honest with yourself and talk to somebody that understands these things and get the right grind that suits your game. They're going to look at what's your typical shot shape or divot pattern like, and or maybe the type of course you play. Do they have tight fairways?
Yep.
Or don't they? If they have little soft, thatchy fairways, then you don't need one that's going to have low bounce.
Well, and they definitely make a difference too, because I didn't look into any of that for the sand wedges I had before. And my lofts were different than the ones I have now. And I've definitely felt the difference just, swinging through it, and you can feel that it does affect you the way, you hit. It helps that specific area. And I am typically steep and dig, so I have a little more bounce, and it's definitely helped me.
So it paid off to do the research.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Obviously, Titleist, without question, is, tops in the game.
Right. You think it's because of this technology and the way they have the different grinds and the different bounces? Like, what makes ultimately the Vokey wedge the leader among wedges? I mean, I saw some commercials on TV during the Travelers this week and on the Golf Channel for different companies making different wedges, and particularly, I'm drawing a blank now. One particular wedge, I don't think it was Callaway.
Cleveland has a good.
Yeah, it was Cleveland.
Cleveland's always been known for their wedges.
And I was, I'm just wondering, what separates the two? Is it this technology of the different grinds?
I think it's the grinds and the grooves.
Yeah,
they got different groove technology and different face technologies. They all have something unique that's within the rules.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I think they got the right combination of the right grooves and the right grinds, the right swings. You can control the trajectory and the distance better.
Yeah. You show Doug. You can show them. There's between the 50, the 52 we have and that 60. There's a significant difference in the.
Right. So this is the 52 F grind. If I can get it up here on the bottom, you're just going to see a straight bottom sole. No extra grinding here as I go across the bottom of it. There's no leading edge and trailing edge are all just on the radius. And if we get the 56 up here.
And that's more like you've seen,
more traditional.
Traditional way.
And this one, if we can get again close in here, you see a grind here, and get my finger where it belongs here, over here. Yeah. It's unique.
Yeah.
Okay, that's different on this is the S grind. Okay, so they grind some of the weight off the back of that's got a thicker flange, but then they grind some of the weight off the back where they can put the weight somewhere else and change the center of gravities.
Makes it a little more stable on your full shots if you're 100 and something yards out.
Right.
So you're at the shop and you're looking at the bag of different Vokeys. You have if you turn it to the back, you'll see S grind, M grind, but there's a number, if you show it real quick, below the loft on the bottom. Rhett, what's that number? You see that? You got the 52 degree, and then it says 8. They have 8s, they have 10s, they have 12s. What's that number?
That
Is it the bounce?
Yeah, I think that's
the bounce. That's the bounce angle.
The bounce angle that it comes
So
off.
if I get
at.
this shaft straight up and down, I'm not going to be able to do it very good from this camera. Let me get over here. Okay, so you got the loft here. This is the bounce angle, but they go opposite directions. So this is loft going up in the air. This is going downward.
Right.
That's 8 degrees down from
Gotcha.
this shaft angle, not from the loft angle. Okay? And if you have more bounce, the ball, it's easier to get under it. It won't dig into the sand trap. It won't dig into the rough.
Right.
Less bounce, tight lie, like 4 degrees of bounce would have lesser of an angle here in
Right.
relationship to the shaft. Okay? So it'd be less, therefore it's easier to get underneath a tight lie because there's less behind it. This is the trailing edge back here where the bounce angle is. And you want the trailing edge to make contact with the sand
Yep.
when it's all said and done.
And I don't think anybody, I think 95% of the people that have ever bought one of these Vokey wedges has noticed that little red number below,
Right.
and and it does make a difference.
Well, I didn't even know what it was until I talked to Doug, and we figured out. Well, I was at a 10 on both my wedges, and now I think one's an 8 and one's a 10.
Yes.
And it definitely, you can feel the difference. And it's just, you have 3 things to think about with these wedges, which is kind of like, if you don't ask, you're going to be all over the place with it. So I will say that you definitely need to do your research on these.
Right.
But they do a great job on their website of explaining
Vokey.com, not Titleist website.
Yeah.
Vokey Wedges
Vokey,
for
yeah.
Title has their own website, Vokey.com.
And they really go into detail on every one of them, every type of shot, every type of swing, every type of lie. So you definitely should do your research. But at the end of the day, really, for the money, that's where you need to go. Titleist.
They're retailing for about 110.
They're
149.
Little higher.
149.
But you were close, Jim.
You get what you pay for, though,
you
right?
paid $149 for yours.
Yeah, I forgot.
And so did Rat.
That was like 3 weeks ago.
Not on sale yet. But they might, they might be slightly higher than their competitors. But for $10,
Yeah.
they're the best.
I mean, Titleist has always been higher.
Yeah,
price-
I don't think a
price-wise,
wedge
but-
is something that you're looking for on eBay either. I think you want your wedges new. You don't want an old wedge.
Right.
No, I think the guys on tour probably change every week or two and how much golf they hit, or how many balls they hit on sandy
Yeah.
conditions, because you don't want those grooves wearing down. That's where the action is. But,
Right.
Right. I mean,
but they should last, as much as, say, let's talk about Jim Sinegrobi, as much as he plays golf, these clubs should last 3 or 4 years, we'll say, before you probably need to upgrade or send them in and have them regrooved. Okay,
Right.
but
Yeah.
the guys on TV, that they're playing 30 some odd weeks a year, 7 days a week, and they're hitting 200 golf balls a day before and after the round and all that. So
they got that dime mark on their wedges
Yeah, they
within
do.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're
so
definitely wearing them out quicker. But yeah, I'd say it's like a putter. You got to have something. You can definitely feel the difference. The drivers, you're within 10, 20 yards.
yeah,
There's some difference there too. But
I think we're all better off spending our money on chipping irons and putters.
Yep.
But yet we tend to mark or flock to the drivers.
I think
And
Sure.
pay $500 or $600 for it.
the company's
to hit it.
to that. Yeah.
You're right. That's
You
where
buy
the
a
game,
whole set of Vokeys
where the
for
game
the
is.
price of a driver.
But I would bet you ask those guys at the Travelers if they had
Yeah.
to lose a golf club, they'd rather break their driver than break their sand wedge.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what are they-
or have it break, not them break it.
What are they
Have it
losing
break.
by hitting their 3-wood if they had to,
That's
if they
right.
broke their driver, right? I mean,
Okay.
but you break one of those. And
But when they
you're
know they're
hurt.
going to hit this ball 107,
Yeah.
and they do, right? They're like surgeons when it comes to that. So if we use those guys as a benchmark, and I think I'm pretty accurate about that. If the driver's gone, they're okay.
Yeah.
Well, so no surprise, we love the Vokey wedges, but we hope that maybe we shed some light into the mystery of, or maybe you didn't even realize there were all these models and options for the Vokeys. So next time when you go to add a wedge to fill that gap in your bag or to replace an older wedge, think about those things we talked about, the different grinds, the bounce number below, not just loft. So,
Yeah.
but obviously, there's no surprise that was going to be a positive review of Vokey wedges.
Yeah.
They're the leader.
By far.
Maybe we'll get our hands on some of those Cleveland wedges and give them a shot too, and compare them.
I would say this in closing on that though too is, Scotty Cameron putters are well known as in addition, but I think even more so the wedges, and dialing those in. I think there's a lot more selection of putters that you can go out there and get that you would like than there are wedges. I think there's really only a handful of different companies that make really, really solid wedges, and I think these guys are in Cleveland are probably the 2 highest, highest end and best fitting wedges. After that, though, it kind of drops off the table. So you really, even with, everybody puts a lot of premium on the putter, which you should, but really, your chipping, you can't put a price tag on that, and so definitely worth a look. Make sure you research it before you go out and get